Good morning and welcome to the Election Day edition of Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. I'm glad that you joined us. We have a lot to talk about, but do not forget, as you see on the bottom of your screen there, polls are now open. So please get out and vote. We've tried to talk to as many of the candidates as we could on this program, and I know that many of you are anticipating either staying up late tonight or waking up in the morning to find out some of these contested races, how they all end up. I know I am looking forward to it, and tomorrow we will dissect it, if you will, on the program. Not just the local races. There are some going on throughout the country that are noteworthy as well that we'll be discussing. And let me put that, I think this is a good time to show you. Let's see if I've got the right one here. There we go. This is our lineup. Today we'll be talking with Vicki Olin. She's Steuben County Board of Elections, just to find out kind of the last minute who, what, when, where, and why. And it's the same as Chemung. Okay. For tomorrow, we'll be talking about the results of the election. Thursday, we moved this around, by the way. We had to change the schedule from Thursday to Friday. So Thursday, we'll be talking with Kevin and Mike from Twin Tiers Comic-Con, which starts Saturday. It'll be this weekend. And then Friday, the legendary Don McLean. He wrote, of course, that, I don't, you can almost call it a standard now, American Pie. So we'll be talking with him on Friday. So that's the lineup for the rest of the week. It's hard to believe it is Election Day. We've been talking about it for so long. You know, I don't want to go on a tangent at the very beginning of the program. But we talk, and we will later on the program as well, talk about presidential elections and, you know, the congressional and senatorial and gubernatorial races. But I've had so many conversations lately about this, how important the local races are. These local politicians, if you will, that can really affect your day-to-day life. And you don't perhaps see much of the coverage. You know, that's why we have the scroll on the bottom of the screen there, because I had mentioned with a few of the candidates recently that we had on the program, the biggest thing is if you don't remember to vote today, it's very easy not to be reminded at some point. Because it just does not get the coverage until really after the polls close when results start to come in. So it'd be very easy to forget. So we highly recommend here, and I think all the candidates did as well, maybe call a family member or a friend and say, hey, don't forget today is Election Day. Do you need a ride? Do you want us to get you to the poll? Or just that friendly reminder, because as your day unfolds and you're working and you've got a lot of things on your mind, it would be easy to forget. So maybe set an alarm. Put something in your schedule that exactly at 4 o'clock I'm voting, or whatever the case may be. So please get out and vote. One quick New York State issue before we get into some Election Day topics. I wanted to mention this, and I know I keep promoting the fact that Assemblyman Phil Palmisano is going to come on the program and do a whole program just on energy policy here in New York. He is going to do that. I had some people reach out and say, hey, when's that happening? We have not set it in stone yet, only because with the election season, I said, Assemblyman, please, can we wait just a little bit as things settle? And then, so I'm assuming within the next couple weeks, but I will be sure to highlight that and promote it. But tying that in, this is coming out of WBNG out of Binghamton. It's about the all-electric school bus mandate that we've touched on quite a bit here, and I know a lot of people have weighed in on. That mandate went into effect in 2022, but it's actually 2035. The school districts have to have all-electric school buses. And this is posing quite a challenge. But with each, listen to this, but with each individual bus and charger costing in the range of $500,000, school districts across the state are posed with a new challenge, coming up with the money. Look at the school budgets already. It's not about even necessarily coming up with the money. This is just another burden on you and I, the taxpayers of New York, for this arbitrary number of 2035, just so we can virtue signal as a state and say, see, we're doing the most in the name of global warming. It's all part of the Clean Water, Clean Air, and Green Jobs Environmental Bond Act of 2022. And I would add, this kind of ties into what I was saying at the beginning. The local races are so important to you. Well, it's also at this level where you vote for people, and then one day you look and, wow, my taxes went up. Wow, it's costing me a lot more to live in this state. According to the Assistant Superintendent of Instruction for the Windsor Central School District, Scott Beatty, he said, at present, my understanding is the technology can get 100 to 120 miles per charge. But under conditions, whether it's weather or road terrain or changes in elevation, we're looking at 60 to 80 miles per charge. Our average bus does between 100 and 150 miles per day. So there are a number of questions that we're going to need to answer in order to make sure we have the correct infrastructure in place. Yes, think of that mathematically. I know a question I've asked on this program numerous times, and I don't think anybody has an answer because no one really has an answer when it comes to this mandate. But does that end sports, or at least travel games? I would think it would have to, right? I mean, unless, because sometimes you have trips much further than 100 and, what do they say, 120 miles. And you think of some of these rural areas and how much those bus drivers in our area are traveling to pick up the kids and drop off the kids. 120 miles can go very, very quickly. And that's without taking into effect weather and changes in elevation, some of those rural roads, of course. So they're hoping for 60 to 80 miles per charge. I just thought that was very interesting this morning. There's another way to promote that upcoming special, if you will, with Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. We've got to take our first break. I'm already running a little late, so stay with us. This is the Election Day edition of Frankly Speaking. You can put in your last-minute pitches if you'd like. Just contact me at the number on the bottom of your screen. We'll be right back. Stay with us. What a beautiful morning here on Marcus Street in Corning. We're broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I am your host, Frank Acom. It is Election Day. Do not forget to vote. You're going to hear that a lot from me this morning. We're going to take a look at what are some of the key races to watch nationwide. You may not have been following it as closely. And obviously we have the local races that we've talked extensively about. I think at this point, if you don't know the candidates and you don't know who you're going in, you know, whether it is Chemung, Steuben, wherever you may be located, I don't think there's much more we could have done with that. So that's why we asked Vicki Olin from the Board of Elections in Steuben County to be on the program here in just a little bit to just fill us in on some of the last minute things that we need to know before we head to the booth. And if you already went to the booth, let me know. Oh, by the way, thank you for all the virtual waves. 3 virtual waves already this morning. But if you already went, tell me your thoughts. And again, if you do want to make a last minute pitch for your candidate, feel free. I will try my hardest to read those comments at the end of the program. Okay, I wanted to highlight this. I talked about it yesterday before we take another break because I have to catch up here kind of quickly because I ran late in the last segment. But I wanted to make sure to highlight because I think this is very important. I know I am very proud of this special that we're going to air on Veterans Day weekend. It's the Big Fox Veterans Day special. This is for veterans, it's for their families, and it's also for members of the community that want to thank our veterans. We have a panel of experts. I want to say 5, 6 people that are going to be on there from Veteran Services, the VA, honor flights. It really is something to make sure that you set your schedule and watch. So Friday at 10:30, that's at night. Saturday at 9 a.m. And then Sunday, right before the NFL kickoff, where they're going to have a special Veterans Day tribute as well. Right before that, you can catch the Big Fox Veterans Day special hosted by myself with a lot of special guests. So now that I did some more housekeeping, let me take another short break, and then we will be back with Frankly Speaking on this Election Day edition. Stay with us. Thank you again for joining us on the Election Day edition of Frankly Speaking here on Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. The New York Post and The Hill, I have 2 separate articles, but they're very similar, put together some of the key races to focus on tonight in the election. Specifically, one that they point to is Virginia. Youngkin is looking to win a majority in the Virginia state legislature, as Democrats currently hold a 5-seat edge in the state Senate. Now, this is interesting because the governor was first elected in 2021. That's Glenn Youngkin. They were throwing his name around, remember, to run against Trump. I never heard anything more about that. I wonder if that was just a lot of wishful thinking from the more rhino, would be the term I think many would use, wing of the party. But the 2023 election will be a referendum on Youngkin, who advanced a series of executive actions on education and criminal justice, while also signing billions of dollars in tax cuts into law. We also have in Kentucky, this is one I know I'm going to be following closely, Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron, who's kind of a up-and-coming rising star, if you will, in the Republican Party, and he just actually received Trump's endorsement not that long ago, is in a heated race to unseat his state's Democratic governor, Andy Bashar, who is seeking a second term. And that's always interesting when you have Democrat as governor and then the Attorney General, Republican. But Bashar narrowly won his first gubernatorial election back in 2019, but is now one of the most popular governors in the country, earning support from around half of the Republicans in Kentucky. So that's going to be a close one to watch tonight. Mississippi, incumbent Republican Governor Tate Reeves is also running for a second term in deep red Mississippi, where he leads by single digits in a race that last month shifted from likely to lean Republican. There's ballot initiatives in Ohio that a lot of people at the national level are focused on, which that is one of the initiatives is on abortion. The proposed amendment, State Issue 1, would change the Ohio Constitution to grant voters the right to one's own reproductive medical treatment and ban authorities from directly or indirectly burdening, penalizing, or prohibiting abortion before fetal viability. Another ballot referendum, issue number 2, would legalize recreational marijuana in Ohio. And finally, there are a couple, by the way, special congressional elections. I think there are 2. But for our friends in Pennsylvania, I'm probably not telling you anything you don't know. I'm sure the ads have been crazy, but there is a Supreme Court election up. Pennsylvania Democrats currently hold a 4-2 majority on the state's Supreme Court, with a 7th seat up for grabs on Election Day. That would bring Republicans a step closer to winning a court majority. GOP candidate Carolyn Carluccio, a former federal prosecutor, public defender, county solicitor, and presidential judge of a county court of common pleas, will challenge Democrat candidate Daniel McCaffrey, a former prosecutor from the Philadelphia District Attorney Office and current Pennsylvania Superior Court judge. This race, according to the New York Post, will shed light on Republicans' prospects in Pennsylvania for 2024 after Biden narrowly won the swing state. So there you are. That is your kind of your takeaways, your few to watch for tonight, on top of, I know you're going to be following closely the local races that we've been discussing so often on this program. So that's kind of our key things if you're bored tonight and you're flipping around to look out for. And I'm sure we'll be covering a lot of it tomorrow, what it all means for the future. That's why, well, I think it's interesting that though they talk about Youngkin and Glenn Youngkin deciding whether or not those races, what that looks like for his prospects, when we were told that he's our only chance at winning the White House. Interesting. We're going to talk about the presidential race. That's not today. I'm sure you're well aware. That is a little less than a year from now. We do have a couple updates on that. Some Israel updates, as well as anti-Semitic attacks. It's tough. So we're going to talk about as much of that as we possibly can. But coming up next, we'll be talking with Vicki Olin from the Steuben County Board of Elections. So you have all the information you need to know before you head to the polls. And again, if you're just joining us, let me know. Maybe you already voted. I'd love to hear from you on that. Or if you want to make your last minute promotion of who you want in whatever race in your area, please let me know, and I'll try to read those at the end of the program. But let's take that break because we've got Vicki Olin coming up next. This is Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV. Big Fox, please stay with us. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, and I'd like to thank our guest, Vicki Olin. Thanks so much for being on the show again.
Sure, thanks for having me.
This is your busy season.
It is.
What's it feel like on election day for you?
Like I need sleep.
How long do you sleep after?
Normally when we finally get everything certified, probably for a good weekend, I will just
Veg out.
veg out.
I love it.
Talk to me, don't nothing.
And you mentioned that when everything's certified. Before that, when can people start to expect results to come in?
Normally on election night, we start posting results on our website probably around 20 after 9.
Oh, okay. And that goes on pretty consistently through the night. I'm sure at some point you call it quits.
Yeah, normally we have everything back from all of the poll sites somewhere around, quarter to 12.
Okay.
But we normally have the majority of the stuff, by 11:30, hopefully.
What should voters know today on Election Day?
Get out and vote.
Mm-hmm.
You need to go to your regularly assigned poll site and vote today.
Okay.
If you did not already vote during early voting. Anybody that's poll site was moved or changed, we mailed them out cards that told them where their new poll site is. And they do need to go to their new poll site and vote instead of going to where they used to vote.
What if someone did not receive that, or they don't believe they received that letter? Is there a place to find the polling places?
They can actually go on either our website.
Okay.
And there is a link on there to check your voter registration.
Okay.
Find your poll site. They can also go to the state board site, and there is a spot there, and they just need to enter in their name and date of birth and their zip code, and it'll bring them up, and it should tell them exactly where they are supposed to go to vote.
And what are the polling hours?
Polls are open on election day from 6 a.m. until 9 p.m.
Okay, 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. so you can vote now. How did the early voting go?
Early voting's gone very well. I mean, we've had very good turnout.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as high as we would like to see, but we do have people coming out to vote, which is good. It's been it was very consistent, throughout the week. So we've been very happy with it.
Does it seem to be growing each time?
Yeah, it does. I think, the more that people are aware that, if they're a registered voter in Steuben County, they can go to any one of the 3 early voting locations set up during early voting in Hornell, Bath, and Corning. And I think the more people are finding that, they go and they try it and, they really like it. It's convenient.
Right.
And then they kind of tell more people. And I think it's just kind of one of those things that it's, gaining popularity.
Did you have enough volunteers this year, or not volunteers, excuse me, you do get paid, I say that every time, to work the polls?
We do, and we have a bunch of new inspectors, so we're getting, getting them trained, and they're out at the poll sites, working with our, senior inspectors, so that helping them, through the ropes so that they can learn everything. And so we've had a pretty good turnout, thankfully, of new inspectors, and it's also given us the option to offer some of our other inspectors to work half a day.
Oh, great.
If the full 16 hours is a little too much for them, that we have been able to offer that option to some of our inspectors also.
And this seems like a question that's probably way too late to be asked, but is there anything candidates need to know?
Well, candidates should know that we'll post our results on election night.
Okay.
And in those results, when we do post them election night, it does include election day totals, all of early voting totals, and any absentees that have already been scanned will also be included in those totals. But the results that are posted on our website on election night are unofficial. And until we have gone through everything and certified the entire election, those results are not final and official.
And this isn't necessarily for candidates, but it speaks to candidates and voters. There are rules on campaigning around the polling places, correct?
Yeah, they, you see quite often in a lot of our towns, they have, the pickup trucks with a big sign in the back of it,
Sure.
and they'll park it, down the street from the poll site, which is fine. But it has to be 100 feet away from the entrance to the poll site.
Okay.
Any kind of sign that says vote for, a candidate or anything like that. And candidates can't talk to voters within that 100 foot. And they can't wear signs into the poll site that says vote for,
Sure. Sure.
John Smith. He's on the ballot today for highway superintendent. They can't wear those kind of things into the poll site either if the candidate is actually on the ballot.
And maybe this is a simplistic question, but who can and who cannot vote today?
Anybody that is registered
Okay.
can come out to the poll site and vote. Doesn't matter what their party affiliation is for this election because it's a general, so everybody that's registered gets a chance to vote. If people have moved into our area from another county in New York State and maybe not notified us that they have moved here,
Mm-hmm.
they can reach out to the board and find out where they would go vote.
Okay.
And they can go and vote, and then we would, see if they were, find their registration from the other county, and we can transfer them here.
And are there ballot measures?
Propositions?
Did I say? I'm sorry. Yeah, propositions. Excuse me. You know what I meant.
There are two statewide
Okay.
propositions on the back of the ballot. And then we do have a couple of local towns that have local propositions on the ballot also.
Okay, and you can actually see what your ballot looks like on the Steuben County Board of Elections website. So do a little research before, and know that they're not called measures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the propositions are also on there in their own
Right.
information also.
Right. All right. Final question, because I know you're very, very busy. What is a common question or questions that people have for you on Election Day? I'd like to think we covered them.
I think we did pretty much.
Well, there, see? Perfect interview. Well, thank you so much for giving us time. Best of luck. And when it's all over, have a drink on me.
Will do.
All
Thanks,
right.
Frank.
Thanks.
Appreciate
Well,
it.
of course. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Stay with us. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. And I want to thank our guest, Vicki Olin, for taking the time out of her busy schedule for being on the program this morning. Again, don't forget to vote. All right, let's go to the presidential race. Last week, we brought you the polls that showed that former President Trump had a lead over Biden, and it started a lot of people into kind of a tizzy. I'm going to tell you some of those comments here in just a moment. But the Washington Post has a piece out this morning saying that some Democrats worry Biden's team is ignoring the political warning signs. I would say, and just watching this, almost every day, there hasn't been much of a campaign apparatus. Now, I know he's the incumbent, Biden. I know he is president, so he's out there a lot. But there hasn't been, other than that $25 million ad buy trying to convince swing states that the economy is actually good. But now you have Democrats that are upset that he keeps pushing Bidenomics. Number one, they don't like the term. They think it's kind of jumbled, kind of wordy. But also kind of insinuating maybe we shouldn't focus on the economy as people, listen, they can tell you what they want in an ad, but you go to the grocery store, you fill up your gas tank, so you're paying for your heating bills now. So you know that Bidenomics may not be all it's cut out to be. Democrats are growing increasingly anxious, according to the Washington Post, at the state of President Biden's re-election campaign. Concerned the president and his political team are ignoring the warning signs and not taking action to correct course. Well, you have to assume anyway that what they were going to do, and this may change, was what they did the last time around, which is as little as possible. The campaign from the basement, as so many people talked about at the time. But that may not work this time when you have, obviously, Ukraine, Israel, the economy, inflation. I mean, the list can go on and on. I am concerned, said Senator Richard Blumenthal. I was concerned before these numbers. I'm concerned by the inexplicable credibility that Donald Trump seems to have, despite all the indictments, the lies, the incredible wrongdoing. Interesting. Wasn't Richard Blumenthal the senator that, well, I won't use his terms of the lies, but he fabricated a little bit of his Vietnam service? So interesting. Anyway, of particular concern to Biden allies are indications that his support among black voters who were critical to his victory in 2020 may be softening. And that's what the poll numbers showed. Again, that was a Siena poll from the New York Times. It got a lot of people in the Biden camp concerned. Cliff Albright, co-founder of the Black Voters Matter Fund, said people fundamentally misunderstood what black voters said in 2020. The depth of support was never there. The enthusiasm was never there for Biden. We were very pragmatic. We knew he was the best chance to beat Trump. Albright said many black voters, especially younger ones, have been disillusioned by Biden's policies, especially on student debt, his efforts to forgive borrowers, you know all of that, and his fervent support of Israel. That is interesting in the Democrat Party, and it's one of the reasons why many people are speculating that the president is weakening on his support for Israel, because people in the Democrat Party are telling him there's a lot of Democrats that don't like your support of Israel. So that's apparently a common refrain from Democrats. Interesting. Kevin Munoz, a spokesman for the Biden campaign, said President Biden's campaign is hard at work, reaching and mobilizing our diverse, winning coalition of voters 1 year out on the choice between our winning popular agenda and MAGA Republicans' unpopular extremism. We know that's going to be one of the lines, threats to democracy, MAGA extremism. That's going to be something we hear a lot in the next year. But a popular agenda, and I don't know, perhaps. That's not what the polling shows, and especially not with Bidenomics. His own party is saying, get away from that. But yes, we'll win in 2024 by putting our heads down and doing the work, not by fretting about a poll. And I know I keep mentioning this, but it is interesting because I believe it was Van Jones who said basically that he should step out, Biden, because you've got a man who is frail. We've talked about some of the mental lapses, etc. So that means you're not really voting for him for 4 years, is 5 at this point, because we have all of next year and then re-election for 4 years. It's interesting. I think the optics of that is probably his biggest problem going into the election. Democrats not directly involved in the re-election campaign question whether Biden's strategy of emphasizing the economy and Bidenomics agenda has been effective and whether it is time for a shift in messaging and tactics. Yeah, and I know a lot want him to focus on abortion, and that you could see that. That was not, well, ultimately it was a winning strategy because she won. But if you recall, Governor Hochul focused on that more than crime, and that ended up making Lee Zeldin a lot closer than they expected. The result is a new level of anxiety among Democrats. Quote, the chatter level is at an intensity I have not seen it before, said one Democrat strategist speaking on anonymity. There are concerns among people in the consulting world that the campaign is not being run the way it's supposed to be run. Yeah, and then you had David Axelrod come out, was it yesterday? He may have first talked about it on Sunday, tweeting, but not tweeting, whatever you call it, Xing. Yes, it was Sunday. He was weighing in on this poll. If you remember David Axelrod, many give him the credit for Barack Obama's win back in 2008. He wrote that the data from the New York Times and that Siena poll will send tremors of doubt through the Democrat Party and will create legitimate concern about having the president seek re-election. Only Joe Biden can make this decision. And that's a comment that former Congressman Joe Semplinsky said a while back, and we've quoted him numerous times on it. It's up to the president. You cannot tell the sitting president that he can't run for re-election. So it's ultimately his decision. And he seems set that he is going to run. And you can have all these talking heads say, wow, we wish he wouldn't, or maybe we could find somebody better. At the end of the day, it does not matter. At the end of the day, it is Joe Biden's decision. And that is what David Axelrod is echoing here. That's what he's confirming to people that may be Biden supporters, or I should say Democrats, who are looking for alternatives. If he continues to run, he will be the nominee of the Democrat Party. What he needs to decide is whether that is wise. This is an important line from this tweet. Again, David Axelrod. What he needs to decide is whether that is wise, whether it's in his, all caps, in his best interest or the country's. Wow, that's strong words. Telling the president to do some soul searching. Is this in your best interest? In the country's best interest? He noted there's a risk associated with changing course now. Yes, of course. First of all, they would really have to get a move on to get on all the ballots. But there's little time left for a primary campaign, and campaigns are how we test candidates. And that's why we've been saying, is Governor Newsom running a campaign in case something like this happens? He's been out really campaigning throughout the country, doing some, I wouldn't say odd things, but when he agreed to the debate with DeSantis, or when he's on Hannity's show, kind of interesting there. I'm going to tell you what one person had to say about that in just a little bit, but maybe that's what Gavin Newsom's been sitting back waiting for, is an opportunity like this, because he has essentially already been campaigning, to Axelrod's point. The president is just proud of his accomplishments. But the stakes of miscalculation here are too dramatic to ignore. Again, that's David Axelrod. We're going to talk a little bit more about this because the media is worried. Then you start to see a couple of, I wouldn't say hit pieces, but this happened before, where you start to have articles you would not normally see from the mainstream media criticizing Biden. Politico, and we forgot to mention this yesterday, I ran out of time, but Politico even going as far and actually reporting on Hunter Biden and saying that Joe Biden misled on some statements. Really interesting. You start to wonder, are the long knives coming out? Are you starting to see some apprehension in a re-election campaign for Joe Biden? All right, folks, it is Election Day. Get out and vote. We got to take another break. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back. I forgot to put the roof cam back up. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. This is the Election Day edition of the program. Get out and vote on your way into work. So I mentioned some people believe, I would probably lean in this camp, that Gavin Newsom is running almost a secret campaign. In case Biden at the last minute says, you know what, I'm not going to run, Gavin Newsom is in the best position to perhaps hit the ground running. Well, Senator John Fetterman, Fetterman, they changed the rules for him because he wanted to wear a hoodie and shorts, and then they realized, well, that was a mistake, so they went back to the normal rules, and you know who John Fetterman is from Pennsylvania. He said there are 2 additional Democrats running for running for president right now. This is at a speech in Iowa. One is a congressman from Minnesota. The other one is a governor of California, but only one has the guts to announce it, referring to Newsom. Now, the other person he's talking about is Representative Dean Phillips, who is a primary challenge to the president, but he has announced, he's made it clear that he's running. What Fetterman's saying about Newsom is he doesn't have the guts to actually announce what he's doing, which is secretly, if you will, run for president against Biden. So back to these numbers that everybody in the media is talking about. Top strategists say that Biden really does not have a path forward, and that's why they're so concerned. Now, Dick Morris, who has in recent years done more with Republicans, I want to be fair, but he was a former advisor to Bill Clinton. He says there's no path forward for Biden at this point. Henry Olsen, a veteran political analyst and senior fellow with the Ethics and Public Policy Center, said it may be in the interest of the Democrat Party for Biden to drop out. But again, it may be good for the party, but that's not the party's decision. It's ultimately Joe Biden's decision. Olson said, Biden is no longer the Democrat Party's, quote, best bet. But if Biden dropping out creates an open primary that leads to somebody to Biden's left emerging, then Biden would perhaps do better. And Douglas Schoen, a former Clinton advisor, said the polls show a serious warning sign that the president is in deep political trouble. And there's a piece from Fox News saying media is in a tizzy over this. You had on the MSNBC show on Sunday saying, I will tell you this, for the first time, Jen, this is on Psaki's show, that I have felt like the 2024 election is in great trouble for the president and for our Democratic control, said Pramila Jayapal, representative from Washington. On NBC, the assumption has been that 2004 ultimately will be a referendum on Donald Trump. This is a very important line. If he wins the GOP presidential nomination, what if 2024 is more a referendum on President Joe Biden? That's what it seems like with the economy, of what the polls are showing. The economy, you obviously have Ukraine, you have Israel. NBC News then cited the poll, noting that the war in Gaza appears to have hurt Biden's standing with Democrat voters, but upcoming legal drama for Trump could change things. Still, the New York Times Siena poll, as well as other polls out there and other surveys, show Biden in dangerous territory for an incumbent president, the NBC newsletter said. There's other comments on this, but we don't have time to go through all of them. I know that George Stephanopoulos saying the polls are tough news for Biden. And Jonathan Karl saying, look, this is a wake-up call. This is frightening for not just the Biden White House, not just for Democrats, but for anybody who fears what a return to a Trump presidency would mean. He can win, meaning Trump. Isn't it interesting they don't even hide in their wording anymore? The fear of a Trump presidency. There's also, and we're not going to have time to get to all of it, there's a piece by Adam Coleman. And Adam Coleman is the author of the book Black Victim, the Black Victor, and founder of Wrong Speak Publishing. He has a piece at the Post that I highly recommend. It's Here's Why Biden's Bleeding Support Among Black and Young Americans. We got to take another break. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back. We are back with Frankly Speaking here on Big Fox. Thank you for joining us. I mentioned this, and we're not going to get through the whole thing, but I mentioned this before when we were discussing, is the media turning a little bit on Biden? Because this is, as far as I'm aware, one of the first times Politico has really talked about it. Fresh revelations contradict Joe Biden's sweeping denials of Hunter. The president hasn't been shown to have committed any wrongdoing. Of course, they put that disclaimer out there. That's why I'm saying they're not all in yet. But a Politico review of recent developments casts doubts on several statements. I should have maybe brought this up at the beginning of the program because it is quite a lengthy piece, and it came out Sunday. We did not mention it yesterday on the program, but you can find it on Politico. And it's a special report by Ben Schreckinger. All right, let's take our last break, and then we're going to wrap things up on this election day. Polls, of course, are now open. Don't forget to get out there and vote after Frankly Speaking is over, of course. We'll be talking about results on the broadcast tomorrow, so you'll want to tune in for that. And if you want to we only have a minute left, but if you want to get your last-minute pitch in for your candidate, please contact me right now, and I'll try to read it on the air before we go. So let's take a break, and then we're going to wrap things up on the Election Day edition of Frankly Speaking. Stay with us. Another beautiful day here on Marcus Street in Corning, broadcasting live from the Hasselson studio. I am your host, Frank Acom. This is the Election Day edition of Frankly Speaking. We received this comment during break. Jonathan Karl using the term fear, people that fear a potential Trump presidency. This viewer says, the only fear I have of a President Trump victory is that relentless attacks will continue. so that it's difficult for him to get any work done. Thank you for your comments this morning. So the Republican debate, the third Republican debate, they have set who is qualified to be in the debate. There's 5 candidates. By the way, I maybe I shouldn't admit this. The debate is Wednesday, meaning tomorrow is the third primary debate in Miami. Boy, time flies, I guess. These are the people that made the cut. New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley, entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy, and South Carolina Senator Tim Scott. Not to qualify, if you're not familiar with the rules, just to give you all the information here on Frankly Speaking. To qualify for the third debate, candidates had to register 4% in either 2 national polls or 1 national poll and 2 polls from separate early voting states, Iowa, New Hampshire, Nevada, and South Carolina. Candidates also had to have reached at least 70,000 unique donors with at least 200 donors in 20 states or territories. Really simple rules to follow. Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds endorsed, there's a lot of speculation that this would happen. Yesterday, she endorsed Florida Governor Ron DeSantis for president at a rally in Des Moines, saying that Ron puts his country first and not himself. People speculating that, of course, is a dig at the former president. Now, speaking of him, Donald Trump, he received the endorsement yesterday of Sarah Huckabee Sanders. And not really a surprise, her former boss, saying it's not a question between right versus left anymore. It's normal versus crazy. And President Biden and the left are doubling down on crazy. The time has come to return to the normal policies of the Trump era, which created a safer, stronger, and more prosperous, America. And that's why I'm proud to endorse Donald Trump for president. So that's Sarah Huckabee Sanders, now governor, Arkansas governor. All right, we are out of time for today's edition of Frankly Speaking, folks. I know I've said it all morning. I sound like a broken record, but please remember to get out there and vote. There's a lot of important elections that we've tried to highlight over the last couple months, actually since probably the show first went on the air, all the way back in March. So I believe you are all going into the booth well informed as best as we could here on the program. I hope that everybody remembers to get out there and vote today. I think many of you might have done early voting. But if not, the polls are now open. As you've seen, scroll across our screen all morning long. The polls are now open until 9 p.m. tomorrow on the program. And I'll put this up on the screen just so you can see everything that we have going here on the program. Tomorrow we'll be talking about election results pretty much all morning. We'll go through some of the races that we've been keeping a close eye on. And then on Thursday, we're going to be talking to Kevin and Mike from Twin Tiers Comic-Con. Twin Tiers Comic-Con starts on Saturday. We will have a booth with Big Fox there, maybe some Frankly Speaking stickers. So if you're around and are going to Comic-Con, say hi. Say how much you enjoy Frankly Speaking. So that's Thursday. And then Friday, the legendary Don McLean, author of American Pie. All right, that's it for the Election Day edition. Now, Frankly Speaking, I've been your host, Frank Acom. We will see you tomorrow morning, bright and early, starting at 7. I look forward to it already.